It wasn't what I learned was it wasn't so much that I desperately wanted fame and fortune. I wanted freedom. I
Hmm.
wanted freedom to be myself. I
Hmm.
wanted freedom to pursue the things that I love. I just didn't know what they were. And I think I tried to carry on parallel lives that a lot of us do that.
And say, I am an actor, I am a producer, I'm a this and that. Um, they don't necessarily know what they are, right? They just kind of give those things. They may
Yeah.
have done those things, but they don't have like one solid thing. And so what people have been saying in the past is fake it till you make it. What do you
Yeah.
say about that saying? Mhm.
So um so I think though the fake it part I don't like because fake it suggests that it's not you.
Well, to begin to brand yourself, or yeah,
Oh,
what does
yeah.
that look like?
Yeah. So there's only one starting point. The starting point really is, there's different ways to help people, right? There's
Hmm.
helping feed people by working in a restaurant, and there's helping people that are going through trauma, and there's creativity, and that's where you have music therapy, art therapy. That tends to combine itself quite often.
Yeah.
Creativity and healing,
Hmm.
energy healing. So,
Hmm.
and I think we have to be a little easier on ourselves in that.
From Hollywood screenwriter to stand-up comedian, PR strategist, and now holistic brand therapist, Hersh Rephun has lived many lives. But it was through burnout, breakdowns, and reinvention that he discovered his true breakthrough. In this conversation, Hersh shares how authentic branding and conscious entrepreneurship can transform not just your business, but your life. Hey there. Look, my hope is that the ThriveWell journey meets you exactly where you are and helps you rise into who you're here to be. It's 2025, and this is your year to thrive despite what the world is throwing at us. And our desire is that our conversations inspire you, bring clarity, and give you a reason to breathe deeper. So, our ask is that you take a moment to subscribe, download the episode, and follow us on your favorite RSS platform. Your support doesn't just help the show grow, it helps build a space that's rooted in your evolution. And that means everything to me and the TTJ team. Now, if you're ready to go beyond the episodes, come join our private ThriveWell Journey discussion group on Facebook. We're walking through a 22-week series built to anchor each week in intention, purpose, and meaningful connection. I do so look forward to hearing your voice and can't wait to see you in the group. But for right now, let's get into it. Yeah. Thank you, Hersh, for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. It's great. It's great to be with you.
Thank you for being here. And I know Yvonne, the producer, and I were looking at your story, and it's a remarkable story. I mean, you've been through all kind of niches in the world, and it's extraordinary. Can you just kind of go back a little bit where you started, and just kind of just start there?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I would say that for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be creative. I was a creative kid. I was a funny kid. I entertained people, and I think at some point around 7 years old, I got in my head that my destiny was to be an entertainer.
Hmm.
But and I don't think it was an impossible dream so much as the choices I made in life were not always consistent with that pursuit. And so the story is really one of what happens when the things that you think you want are not necessarily aligned with who you are. And so uh first of all, I was raised in a very devout Jewish family,
Hmm.
Orthodox Jewish family. So there were a lot of observances, a lot of limitations in terms of Sabbath observance, kosher observance,
Right.
things that really, if you think about it, they kind of dictate what job you can have because you can't work on the Sabbath. There's a number of different holidays. We're in the holiday of Passover now. There's a number of days where you can't work. So the commitment to the faith comes with limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of my struggle was equating my desire to not be so constrained with being free to pursue uh, fame and fortune in Hollywood, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it wasn't, what I learned was, it wasn't so much that I desperately wanted fame and fortune. I wanted freedom. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted freedom to be myself. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted freedom to pursue the things that I love. I just didn't know what they were. And I think I tried to carry on parallel lives, that a lot of us do that. We carry on like parallel lives. So I was working in advertising. I was living a orthodox lifestyle, married with 3 kids, and then also trying to pursue creativity in whatever way I could. I
Yeah.
did some stand-up comedy. I wrote screenplays because I felt like, well, if I couldn't work on the Sabbath, but I wanted to be in the entertainment business, I could write screenplays and then eventually put myself in the movies that just didn't shoot on the Sabbath, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be. I would work around it.
Yeah.
And uh, the funniest thing, I think, is that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is that you succeed a little bit. You succeed enough where no one tells you don't keep writing. No one tells you don't keep acting. No one tells you don't keep doing comedy. But on the one hand, you have a really restrictive lifestyle. And on the other hand, you have uh, these really, outrageous dreams. And then in the middle, you have a kind of a family life.
Mm-hmm.
And the family life needs to be supported by the rational, grounded, day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're serving a lot of different masters, and I found that was very draining. And until even when I moved from New York to LA, um, it was draining. Still, I was doing so, Michael, sometimes you fall into a business you didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
So I fell
Yeah.
into the business of doing PR for commercial production and post companies and artists, directors, composers, editors. I like doing that. I still do that to some extent. And but in my mind, that was not who I was supposed to be, right? I was supposed to be comedian, writer, Hollywood guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that those two things didn't quite gel. It's like being an agent but being an actor, right? You're going to be one or the other.
You have to be one or the other. Yeah.
You have to be one or the other. And so I think where the real burnout came was where I was trying to do everything and really achieving only pieces of each thing.
Yeah.
And that was challenging.
Yeah. So I hear that actually, because I think many people these days, they don't necessarily have a direct track to whatever goal or dream that they're creating for themselves. And they pull from here and pull from here and trying to figure it out. And in that search, you're doing many things.
Yeah.
And those many things that they might not get you closer to the direction that you want to go, but then in that process, you feel the burnout, right? When you experienced, what was the moment that you experienced that burnout, and what was the shift that said, okay, we have to go to this new direction?
I think that in about 2011, I had a successful PR firm in Los Angeles with 3 partners, and we went to interview for a new client that we were going to possibly bring on. It would have been a transformative client that would have brought a lot of billings into the company.
Mm-hmm.
And something didn't sit right with us. And on the drive back to our office, one of us asked, who wants to take on this client? Because it would be a majority. If 3 of us wanted to, we would do it.
Yeah.
And nobody raised their hand, not one of the four of us. And then another person said, who wants to go to an open mic? And we all four of us raised our hands. And we went to an open mic in the Valley, do stand up. And I had done stand up as a younger man. My partners had, one was a technologist, one was a CEO, one was a CFO. They didn't have any experience on stage, but we just felt like we needed to do this.
Mm.
And I think the burnout of trying to dance so hard to satisfy a client, and it's like I work probably 12 hours a day easy, and
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm excited to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
That's me.
I don't, yeah, it doesn't bother me, but I'm doing it for something I really feel passionate about. And I think at the time I was twisting myself into so many directions and feeling that creative bug being stifled.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, I went in and met with that prospective client, and we were like, that client has a lot of money and they'll pay us a lot of money, but they're not that great. And we just felt like, it wasn't going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And yet with the comedy, there was this freedom of, you could go up on stage, say anything you want, and as long as it's funny and you're not hurting anyone, it was liberating.
Yeah.
Only thing is, how do you turn that into, how do you turn that into income,
Right. Right.
So there was this weird snap of like, it wasn't a typical burnout. I experienced burnout again later, but it wasn't typical, but it was an epiphany more than anything, except I think, we took it to the extreme. And if we had just said, you know what, once a week, let's go do stand up,
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been probably a good outlet. But
Yeah.
instead we were like, no, we're going to be stand-up comedians, and we're going to create a production company around it. And we're going to just like shift everything. I mean, we had staff, we had all of a sudden they're working on, instead of working on a commercial campaign or an event or something,
Yeah.
they're working on invites to a stand-up show, or they're like, what's going on? But it was fun and creative, and that I think, was therapeutic. And in my book, Selling the Truth, I talk about this period, and I say I wouldn't really go back and do it over, because I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't change where I am. So I wouldn't really change it, but it was a major shift. And I think that was a moment for sure where I felt like the creative personality couldn't be denied anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel like you can connect the creativity with a way to earn from your creativity?
Yeah, well, I did. See, I think one of the things I didn't appreciate was that I was always earning from my creativity. I just thought that I wasn't using the right skills, because
Mm.
I would watch people on Broadway, people in movies, and I would feel like that's where I should be. And I would indeed be comfortable in those situations. I had done a couple of little things here and there, and I was always very comfortable. But um, I held it in a kind of a higher esteem,
Mm-hmm.
like it was the dream, right?
Yeah.
To be host the Oscars, or be on the be an actor, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, so I looked down on the work I was doing. And when we were in the throes of COVID, and all my other work, as by that time I was a creative director, I was working with sneaker brands all over the world, traveling all over the world. But when all of that stopped, and I started podcasting and having conversations like these, and talking to people from all kinds of businesses and entrepreneurs and all this, that I realized, well, maybe that gift of talking to people, listening to their vision of who their brand should be, their personal brand, and helping them bring that to life successfully.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is my calling. Maybe that is my gift. And that's when I really leaned into it. And I thought, yeah, instead of doing just a stand-up comedy thing, I'm on stage giving a very funny, hopefully entertaining presentation, but I'm really helping people who are trying to make progress with their brands,
Yeah.
as opposed to going into comedy club and you just want to make them laugh,
Right. Right.
which is great. But
Right.
but I don't even know that I could do that now. I did it, 5
Yeah.
years ago. I would go up in the, in a club in New York, LA, the Funny Bone in Des Moines. It could be anything, and I
Uh-huh.
would go up and do it like I was a real comic. But
Yeah.
I felt like when I started leaning into this person that I am now, it was all one person. The
Mm-hmm.
same person shows up at every party. I don't show up at one party and I'm a comedian, and another party I'm a creative director, and another party I'm a publicist. I'm Hersh, and I show up as Hersh wherever I go, and that's who I am.
So you reconciled yourself, right? So you talked
Yeah.
about you can't. It's in my notes, but I don't want to look at. You talked about doing parallel. You can't be two people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, Talk about that a little bit and how you reconciled yourself in order to get to your space of reinvention.
Yeah. Well, you know how when we show up at an event, a networking event, or a business event, or even a wedding, even a family wedding, you
Mm-hmm.
show up and people say, "What do you do?" And it's amazing to me, now that I've been studying it for a few years, how many of us struggle to answer that simple question. Now, if you're a neurosurgeon, you would say, I'm a neurosurgeon. If you're a postal worker, you'd say, I'm a postal worker. But for people in the entrepreneurial world, it's more difficult. It's more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
People say, what do you do? And you could say, well, I took over a production company, and I now run that, but then we also do this, and then I make this balm for CBD, and I invented this new balm that uses air to cure wounds, and then I also sell this microphone, or I do, it could be anything, and by the time you're done, people don't know what you do.
Right.
And
Right.
or we go in and you say, Michael, oh, Hersh, what do you do? And I think to myself, well, Michael has a podcast. I guess I should say I'm a comedian, because I am a comedian, and I'll go on and be funny. And then you're like, oh, well, do you know anybody who helps people with brands? And I would say, oh, I do that
I do
too.
that too.
Oh yeah, I also do that. So I realized, you know what, that you only get one chance to make that first impression.
Right.
And wasn't thinking I was going to do this as my niche, but I
Mm-hmm.
said, I need to solve this problem. I had a website that was two sides, literally two sides. You could pick the performance side, or you could pick the PR and creative side. And I
Mm-hmm.
was, and it's, it was fun. It was a fun site, but again, who is he? Who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to solve that problem for myself. And once I could solve that problem for myself, and I could rebuild my website, and I could say, hey, I call myself a holistic brand therapist,
Mm-hmm.
because that really is accurate. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
help people with their entire 360 view of their business,
Mm-hmm.
and I organize it, and I help them come up with strategy and language, vocabulary around it. And it's like therapy, because this is how I am. I care about who they are. I want to know about their childhood. I want to know all the different things that influence them, because in there are all the amazing things that make them unique.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. But that's all you're ever going to get. So when someone meets me at a party, the person who introduces me will say, oh, this is Hersh. He's a holistic brand therapist.
Right.
And when they ask me what I do, I'll say, I'm Hersh. I'm a holistic brand therapist. And whatever the answer is, this is what what I love most and what I teach people is that we try to memorize those sentences, right? I have one on my LinkedIn, but I can't remember well, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to memorize it.
Yeah.
I help conscious entrepreneurs, I can tell you what it is, but the funny thing is, if you ask me what I do, I can actually tell you a million different ways what I do. And
Right.
that is the important thing. So in other words, if they say, what do you do? And what is a holistic brand therapist? I say, well, I'm looking at your entire brand as a human being, as a professional, as a business. I'm putting it
Mhm.
all together so that the language makes sense, that you have a strategy to reach the people you need to reach. Now, that's not what I said a minute ago, but it's the same thing,
Mhm.
because it's better to be fluent in your brand language than to
Mhm.
memorize one sentence.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason we can't memorize that sentence is like you just said about notes, and I experienced as a comedian, you get stage fright. You get a little bit of stage fright. People want you to recall a specific sentence, and you have to now search your mind for that sentence
Mhm.
or keep it at the top of your mind, in which case you sound like a robot,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So,
It's a for me, it's a challenge. Well, it's just being present, and I think if I'm more present with who I'm talking with, and that thing is real for me, it's easier to just flow.
yeah,
And so that's why before when we talked, I was like, this is what this podcast is all about, and other kind of stuff. Like, I could have looked it up, but I'm like, okay,
yeah,
just be what that is, right?
that's
Um,
right.
and I just want to ask before we go into my next mental segment. Fake it, like you talking about, you know, in the pursuit, sometimes you're many, many things, and you may not be, the fullness of what that thing is, right? And so people walk around and say, I am an actor, I am a producer, I'm a this and that. They don't necessarily know what they are, right? They just kind of give those things. And they may
Yeah,
have done those things, but they don't have like one solid thing. And so what people have been saying in the past is fake it till you make it. What do you
yeah.
say about that saying?
That's an interesting saying, because I prefer learning on the job, right? Like, I don't think there's any reason why you should you should not be compensated when you're delivering a service. Let's put it that way. Like when I had interns, we always paid interns. It was,
Sure.
it was like I'm an advocate of the paid intern. I think that's important. And if we had ones that weren't, they were really, really just starting out.
Hmm.
Like kids that you can't hire.
Hmm.
So, um, so I think, though, the fake it part I don't like, because fake it suggests that it's not you,
Right.
you know? And I think that if you're going to recognize that the truth is really all you have. So if if you're if you don't know something, don't give somebody bad advice,
Hmm.
right? But what I think is meant by fake it till you make it in some instances is act as if, right?
Hmm.
Is, you know, no, an attorney with 15 years of litigation experience, but you want to be.
Hmm.
And you're going to take it as seriously as a intern or a first year associate as you would if you were a veteran litigator. So you're not presenting yourself, you're not faking it, you're committing to it, you
Yeah.
know? So I get the phrase, but I've always been reluctant to buy into it, because I think that uh it just limits you.
Yeah.
Because if you're faking something, that means you're losing the authenticity of who you are.
Right.
And one of the greatest moments in my stand-up experience of watching people was at an open mic where a comedian got on the stage, and it was like one of his first times. And this are just other comics. He's not really in front of an audience,
Hmm.
but he's nervous. And he turns away from the audience and he laughs to himself with his face to the curtain. And he's like, you're just making me nervous. And everybody laughed. And it was that release of anxiety and stress that loosened him up. And then he started talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden, everything went away. All the tension went away. And he was alive on the stage. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we're looking for. And if we're worried about, trying to appear like something, then, it may be too tall an order. Better to just take it seriously and
Right.
work as hard as you can at something.
Here on the ThriveWell journey, we talk a lot about not just surviving, but thriving. And a big part of that for me has been understanding my health on a deeper level. That's why I partnered with Live Good and brought it under my company, Orion's Health. Not just because I believe in the products, but because I've seen what they can do firsthand. I've walked through some hard health chapters in my life, including cancer and a kidney transplant. And I know what it feels like when your body's working against you. That's why we're offering 2 free tools that help me and can help you too. First, go to myfreehealthreport.com/Orion's Health. Take our quick health questionnaire and get a personalized report created by Dr. Ryan Goodkin, Live Good's Director of Product Development. It's clear, actionable, and totally free. Second, visit myfreedetox.com and get a free chlorophyll and zeolite detox bottle with your first product order. It's a gentle, natural way to clear out toxins and start fresh, something I personally use and stand behind. This isn't just a sponsorship, it's part of my mission through Orion's Health to help people thrive in body, mind, and spirit. Of course, always, always, always consult your physician before starting any new supplement or health regimen. Your body is unique, and your healthcare provider should always be part of the conversation. The links are in the show notes. Now tap in and take your next step toward thriving. Yeah, I agree. I've always disliked that saying,
Yeah.
because I think even if you're like a novice or something in whatever field that you're going into, like just be whatever that is, or be who you need to be until you reach the fullness of who you are going to be in that space.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But okay, good. Which leads me into branding, right? This is your specialty, and I know that you call yourself a holistic personal brand therapist, right?
Mhm.
Um, First of all, I know you kind of talked about it, but what does it mean to help entrepreneurs kind of align their personal passions with their brand?
Well, this is a perfect segue because when you talk about being who you are and not faking it, till you make it, but rather, grow in real life in front of the people who you're exposed to. That's what aligning the vision of who you are with your personal values. Like if I'm Lay's potato chips, I don't have to have any personal values.
Hmm.
The people who make Lay's as a, Frito-Lay company,
Hmm.
commitment to quality, truth in advertising, production, and, ethical treatment of employees, whatever it might be. Those are their values. But when you're a person, even if you're the CEO of a big corporation, you have a responsibility to yourself to
Right,
set a certain standard.
right.
And so the idea is my brand as a person should really align with who I am so that I don't feel like I'm wearing a mask.
Hmm.
You know, I don't want to get up in front of 150 people and tell them a bunch of stuff and then get off stage and sink into some other personality that has nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
That's acting.
yeah.
That's acting, which is great if you're an actor, but
Hmm.
it's not a personal brand.
Hmm.
And Elvis Presley said once, they asked him in a press conference about his image, you know, being so huge and amazing and almost godlike. And he said, the image is one thing and the man is another, and it's very hard to live up to an image.
Yeah.
And that's very profound. And I've always thought of that when I think about this, because I think that it's hard to live up to an image that is too far away from us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you are being your authentic self, do you think that trying to live up to an image, what kind of the thought of that would kind of dissipate or release you from actually trying to do that?
I know what you're getting at. For me, the biggest challenge was not minimizing the relationship between the image and the man. So in other words, if I could do something really well or impactful, it was important for me to own that, just
Mm-hmm.
as it's important to own my limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I wasn't thinking, and I'm not talking about the movie star stuff, the fame bug stuff. I'm talking about, like more like now, if I write a book that I feel has tremendous value, then playing it down too much is a disservice to
Mm-hmm.
the people who I am doing it for.
Yeah.
So what I used to perceive as modesty was maybe an excess of humility, or a little bit of imposter syndrome, or self-loathing, even in some cases, where we just don't think we're good enough. And
Right. Right.
so I've experienced more of that than my head getting too big, or thinking that I'm striving to be something I'm not.
Mm.
Because number one, I'm not striving, and maybe that's why I wasn't meant to be like to be that typical like stage person, that comedian or actors, who I love the whole profession and everything, but it's about them.
Yeah.
It's about them being in the spotlight. And here, what I do is put my clients in the spotlight, and that's really my job.
Yeah.
And I think that the only thing with the values is I have to remember. I tell them, respect yourself. Have your, don't minimize your contributions. I have clients that are very humble, and I think it's to their detriment sometimes. So I'll say, don't be so humble.
Mm-hmm.
You're not at risk of being an a-hole. I'll tell you, you're not so full of yourself that if
Yeah.
you have confidence, people are going to think you're a jerk.
Right.
Usually the people who proclaim too much of their greatness are just not that great. And they know it, and they're afraid to confront it. So they keep trying to convince themselves that they're awesome. But
Puffing themselves up.
yeah, they puff themselves up.
You talked about there was a point when actually, I don't want to go there yet. It was you. I was going to talk about when you said you were getting rid of the fame bug, but I don't want to go there yet.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there yet. In the world of branding, and someone who is an entrepreneur, beginning to be an entrepreneur, where did they begin to brand themselves? Like, what does that look like?
Well, first of all, Michael, I would say that I have failed enough that I am actually fully an entrepreneur. I've earned I've earned the entrepreneurial rank through failure, even though we don't really call it failure. We call it learning. We call it valuable experience. But it sucks either way when that happens. But I have gone through that. But as far as where you start, which was your question? Your question was, where do you start as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, to begin to brand yourself, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So there's only one starting point. The starting point really is, who are you? Who are you? And that's why I said about alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? Because not what do you do, not who you serve, not how you do it, not how much you charge or how much you've made. Who are you? because that's the center of everything. Then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, what are my values? Not what are my values in business? What are my values in person? Right? Like, what do I think is important? Then you start to build it out almost like circles around circles around circles, like a bullseye, right? So in the center is you, and you start to build out these layers that, if you think about it, are getting closer and closer to the outside world, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in here protected. This is what you are, what you value, what's important to you. And as you kind of build these layers on, you start to create messages that reach the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they reverberate in the outside world. Now, the stronger that core is, the stronger your knowledge of who you are is, the more resonant the message will be.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people do with branding is they'll say, "Oh, I'm creating the Intel brand. I need a logo for it. I
Mm-hmm.
need a list of specs. I need a color. I need a scheme. I need it, all this stuff. And then I'm a brand." But they
Mm-hmm.
don't do that part where they say, "Who am I?"
Mm-hmm.
Then they get to the end, and then they're like, "Okay, now who am I? Now who are we?
Mm-hmm.
I've got this, I've got that, I've got that." And they're trying to layer that who am I on top of this shell of nothing inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they falter. So when you say, like, where does an entrepreneur start in building a brand, it really is knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, before you brand yourself, know yourself. And there's a chapter of that in the book, because that's the only way you're going to figure out, number one, what your brand is, period, and number two, how your brand is completely unique and not like any other brand in the world. So you have to do that work, and that's where I start with my clients.
Okay. Starting with yourself. In that creation, I know that we make mistakes, right? So do you think that the mistakes are doing that shell, trying to figure out the colors and the brand, the logo and all that kind of stuff? Are those the common mistakes that beginning entrepreneurs make when trying to create that brand?
Some of them make that mistake of the external first. So they can make that mistake. And another mistake that people make is guessing at what their audience needs or who their audience is, and then trying to be that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I kind of alluded to it by saying you have to know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but we were talking more about values and all that other stuff. But what
Mm-hmm.
if I look at somebody who needs a pen, and they don't like click pens? I pull all these examples from my desk. I guess this is why I have stuff on my desk. They don't like click pens, so they want a pen that doesn't click. So they go, yeah, okay, so we know people need pens that don't click. I'm gonna make a pen that doesn't click. But if you don't know what your skills are, know what your genius is, know what your superpower is, you may be choosing the wrong customer and the
Mm-hmm.
wrong product to make. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and you're going to think, "Oh, I have to please that person with the pen, because that's a big market. That's a big market. There's a lot of money in there."
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can match yourself with a market based on the viability of the market, or you can know yourself, then start researching markets that already seem to align to you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start to realize, okay, now you're picking something that's very close to your heart.
Yeah.
I spoke to a guy yesterday. His whole passion in life is customer service, customer loyalty. That's his area that he's kind of like, that's his thought leadership area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of businesses that he can engage in and a lot of roles he can play in that regard.
Yeah.
But he knows that core thing. And knowing that core thing means there's a million jobs he's not going to do. There's a million businesses he's not going to open because they don't align with that passion.
When you're in alignment, does that can you sense that? Is there a feeling that comes along with that?
Yeah, I think
What is
that.
that? Yeah, what
What
does
is
that
it?
feel like? What is that? Because I'm looking at, here's what I'm looking at. There's
Yeah.
someone, a new entrepreneur, and they're like, you know, they don't necessarily know themselves, but they're finding themselves along the way, right?
Uh-huh.
This works, that doesn't work. This works, that doesn't work. And then, it's almost like a sense of confusion and, kind of chaotic, trying to figure it out. And then along the way, maybe something clicks. What shows up and how does one experience that? Do you know?
Well, it's interesting that, you use as the examples a lot of stuff that are more about strategy, because trying something that works or doesn't work is strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the click is, yeah, strategies click into place. This strategy works, this one didn't. That's fine. But that click, that feeling of clarity is about where you want to end up or where you want to go. And in order for it to click, you don't even need to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know something deeply. So let's just use that customer service example. Let's say that he didn't even have any job experience yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he just was in a restaurant and knew, oh man, I just love the way they take care of I love the way they take care of people. I love
Yeah.
taking care of people that are patronizing a business. I just love it. There's a lot of different ways to go. And they may have a lot of trial and error. And they may have they may have a job in hospitality and realize, no, it's not that. I want to be in customer loyalty. No, it's not that. I want to open a nonprofit. Could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
But they have that sense of doing what they love. And I think it's a feeling of and I can, I can describe it as, like I said before, if it's something you want to get up and do, and let's say I got to get up and do taxes, and I don't love that. That has nothing to do with this and all that. But what's the big picture, right? I'm getting up most days and doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And a few days a year, I got to go hunker down, and put myself through that. Okay, fine. It's all, it's all a trade-off. It's all part of
Yeah.
everything. So I think, so how do you, let me turn it on you a little bit.
Okay.
So do you know what lights you up? What you feel your passion is?
Yeah. So anything that when I commit myself to anything, it's really about serving people. I've always, in some form or fashion, found it very rewarding to serve people, to see like whatever their needs are, and I can supply whatever the need is, and it's done, and they're like, oh, this is all right, okay, they feel great about whatever the outcome is. That lights me up, right?
Yeah.
And I know that I'm in a good space when I'm serving people, and so
Yeah.
like I've in customer service, working as a bartender, all these things. Um, but there's also the world of creativity that that I enjoy. And so that's how I became an actor and moved out to LA and, did my jobs there. And so it was a mix of those two that makes me feel so, like fulfilled. And so I turned that into what I'm purposed to do, right? And so hence this podcast and my business and things like that. So
Yeah.
so I know that I, like you, waking up early in the morning, I'm 5:20, click, ding, 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 every morning, right? I'm like up, walking the dog and, doing things and getting, kind of excited about the day to make this work so that I can do what I feel like I'm purposed to do.
Yeah. And you know what the dog wants? The dog wants you to be happy, which is the best thing about dogs, because I have two of them, and when I wake up, I got to get them out too, right? And they got to go out and pee or whatever. But I also know they really just want to make me happy. That's kind of what
Yeah.
they want. They want to make the family happy. They want everybody to be happy. Now, sometimes they're a little overzealous, but
Yeah.
basically,
Yes.
they want us to be happy. So it's very helpful. But
Yeah.
back to, you synthesized two things that are really important to you: the creative aspect and the service aspect. And I
Hmm.
kind of did a similar thing. I loved engaging with people and talking to people and sharing with people, but I also enjoyed listening to people and then helping them. So all these little skills that someone could just write down those things, right? What are things they love to do, but don't use any jobs, just write it down.
Hmm.
I love listening. I love helping people who are in distress. There's different ways to help people, right?
Hmm.
There's helping feed people by working in a restaurant, and there's helping people that are going through trauma. And and there's creativity, and that's where you have music therapy, art therapy, that tends to combine itself quite often:
Yeah.
creativity and healing,
Hmm.
energy healing. So
Hmm.
and I think we have to be a little easier on ourselves, in that sometimes we think there's one thing. I also had that with the entertainment business. You think there's one thing, and anything else you can't do, or
Right.
anything else is not. Well, no, that's just nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of us can only do one thing. I'm
Right.
sorry.
It's it's not a thing. It was so funny because when I started, my whole thing, the kind of the thing that flows and that helps me do what I do is that I like to support people to connect with their purpose. But what I've learned is that purpose purpose can be purposes, and you can have one purpose in one moment and then another purpose in another moment, but then there could be an overall purpose of who we are as human beings. And which kind of leads me into what you talked about with on your journey, which was quantum consciousness.
Oh yeah.
um, can you explain what that concept means and how you developed in that world?
My understanding of it is, and it came through, doing podcasting.
Hmm.
My first podcast that I started is called Truth Tastes Funny, and it's
Yeah.
about surviving and thriving in a chaotic world. And one of my guests, Janet Elaine Schmidt, her name is a quantum consciousness accelerator. That's what she does, and she brings people into. Uh, I mean, awareness is helpful, but a lot of people don't even understand the process. But the goal is to get them in touch with the universe at large, almost. You
Hmm.
know, we could say there are people who say, "Oh, well, can have contact with the beyond, or we can have, past life experiences, or we can have." But I think the notion is basically that, or we could say from a religious point of view, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and we can say we want to connect that way. But
Yeah.
this is like, if you think of the universe as being so vast and so enormous, but we have almost this direct line to the source,
Hmm.
to the energy source of it. And it can clear up a lot of confusion that we may have about certain things. So there's something that she does called goal balances, where you have certain things that bother you, that irritate you, that block you, and the goal is to replace those things with the things that are more helpful and productive. So there's a semblance to hypnosis, although you're not hypnotized or asleep or
Okay. Okay.
anything like that, but you are opening yourself up to uh, really believing an idea that you want to believe but haven't been able to believe.
Mm.
And so the idea is for the universe to kind of support that notion, because let's say that the notion was that I have all these skills and talents, but I really do want to be championing other people's successes,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I have done my whole career. But I was, I was kind of like distracted by this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did the quantum consciousness stuff, I didn't address that even specifically. I just addressed things that may have been in my genetic makeup, things that may have been in my life that I may have experienced, things that would have held me back from my true purpose. And I just wanted to clear those things out because they had created all this doubt. I had all this doubt in myself.
Yeah.
And you can succeed and still be doubting yourself. And that's what I had done with those other companies, But like I said, I would only, achieve maybe a modicum of success, or I would self-sabotage in some way, hold myself back in some way. And I think that cleared it up, was like a way of acknowledging that there's good news that you're kind of not listening to. There's stuff that you can do that you're kind of fighting. And so I think that part of it is tied to meditation, energy healing. And I don't know enough about this stuff to be an expert on it. I only know that I have really enjoyed and continue to enjoy the journey of the unconscious mind, and how much power we can wield over our destinies if we're willing to let our mind free a little bit, set it
Yeah.
free.
Mm-hmm.
Don't if we're stuck, then allow ourselves to get unstuck.
Yeah.
There's enough for us to hold on to, that we're not going to lose our entire grip of reality.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
enough reality in the world that we're not going to get away from all of
Right.
it.
Right.
So just free your mind a little bit, and and think of a world in which you can align with the universe.
Yeah. Is that a line? Well, does that connect with the world of now? This is the group that I started, which is called Conscious Capitalism, a long time ago. But then since then, it just life happened, right?
Right. Yeah.
And will that kind of bridge the world of conscious entrepreneurship that you talk about? And how does that connect?
It connects simply from the point of view of not thinking, and it's funny because really it's based on my personality. It's the kind of people that I attract. I attract people who care about other people. That's really it. And the people who don't care about other people are very easily bored with anything that I talk about.
Mm.
They're not interested.
That is just not
They're
interesting.
really
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
They want to hear how they can get more, and they can have more, and they can have more. They're not interested about anybody else, And so I think that conscious entrepreneurs are really that. They're aware of others as being significant. And so they're aware that there's a greater good. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't make money. It doesn't mean they shouldn't have all the things they want, or they shouldn't pursue things that make them happy. It just means they're aware of more out there than just them. And I speak to those people because I think I've always been aware of it, and I don't know how to become unaware. It's very hard to be unaware of something you're aware
Once you become aware.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why they say ignorance is bliss, because you can't recapture it.
Exactly. Well, I'd rather be aware and woke, I guess.
Yeah.
So you talk your yes brand, and I found this your line, which is you help conscious entrepreneurs reposition their personal brand to command premium fees, attract media opportunities, and become the go-to expert in their industry. This is what you're about. This is what you
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit more if you can.
Yeah. So at first glance, given the fact that I was talking about all this conscious stuff, right? We would say, oh, well, why would they care about premium fees? Why would they care about being paid a certain amount or what? Because our businesses that we create should be allowed to thrive and should be allowed to provide for us. You know how I said, to a humble client, you're not going to be an a-hole. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the people that I work with don't really have to worry about being a-holes. What they have to worry about is asking for the money they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often, they are, even if they're successful, undervaluing themselves. And so if they bring themselves to say, well, I get this, I deserve this, my time is worth this, that's half the battle. So that's why I state that the premium fees that they should be paid are things that they will be positioned for when they work with me on their brand.
Okay.
And then there's the fact that they want to have a voice that is worth listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking opportunities, media opportunities, not every speaking engagement is an incredible opportunity. So knowing who they are, again, knowing what their message is, what is their keynote about? They could get coaching from someone else on stage presence and things like that. I mean, I'll do that, unofficially, but there are people who specialize in oratory skills, stage presence, and all. But none of that means anything if your core keynote concept isn't fully aligned with who you are and fully aligned with your brand.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I help them do that, and I help them with their podcasts. I help them with their books. I help them with any outward facing endeavor that they might have.
Nice.
And that's where that comes from. And then being the go-to expert is probably, what I would really say is thought leadership, in the sense that we have this idea that thought leadership means you're changing the way the world does X. It's not really that. It's that nobody thinks exactly like you. And if you can approach your business with that kind of originality of thought and freedom of thought and confidence, then you are a leader in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be that leader, you have to have the right message. You have to have the right vocabulary. You have to have, everything has to fit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a finely tailored suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has to fit. It has to be that thing where you put that jacket on and it doesn't need any work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of stocky. When I was younger, I would go shopping. I've never felt like I could put a jacket on and it wouldn't need something. And it was a terrible feeling, yeah, it would need tailoring. But every now and then there was something I would put on and it would just fit like a glove. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the feeling that I want my clients to have when they walk out on a stage as X, when they host a podcast, guest a podcast, write a book, read their own book. I want that fits like a glove feeling to be connected to them at all times. And that's what the go-to expert in your marketplace is, because there's going to be something that you do, something that some way you go about it that is really definitive and really presents for you on your behalf.
Yeah. As you were describing and talking about that, I was just imagining, just have that visualization in my head And then what that would feel like to me, it would be just, I don't know, just comfortable and
Yeah.
full of who I am in that, just being completely authentically myself in that space. Um, that's what that feel like a glove feeling would feel
Yeah.
like to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And off of the back of that, what do you see is the most critical skill an entrepreneur should develop in the coming years to stay competitive and successful?
Um, the uh, the constant ability to gain knowledge.
Mm,
There's knowledge that you can gain that has not even presented itself yet. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to be a technological genius. Technology, sometimes we love it, sometimes we hate it. it it's not about that. There is so much to learn, and I will say, on a more humanistic level, the reason I think it's so important for us to learn, and for us to learn continuously, and for us to
mhm,
teach our children how to learn, is that we need it to survive.
mhm.
We cannot rely on anyone else's information to help us or save us. And so the only way we can prevail and succeed, thrive, survive, is to be responsible for gaining knowledge. And
Yeah.
that's what will make what I call, on a professional level, I call it ever evolving achievement. You know, you're just always evolving.
Yeah.
So it's not like I had 10 clients, now I have 20, now I have 30, I have 40, I have 50. It's, I've learned this and I've applied this. Now I know this. Oh, now I know this. Now I have this to share. And you
Hmm.
have all this stuff growing, 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 so that you always have more stuff to share. And that's the most important skill.
Growth of knowledge. I like that. um, for the last question, what is, as your last words on this podcast, um, what's on your heart? What is it? What is that you want to share with people?
I would say what I call positronics. Positronics means, it's kind of based on Isaac Asimov, uh, the I, Robot novel, the Bicentennial Man, all of that. Being a kind of a sentient robot, a robot that can feel, right?
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
brain that can feel, but that cannot harm anything else. In other words, the impulse is always to be kind. And
Hmm.
so the positronic idea is that we have to design ourselves to add. Yes, the positivity of yes brand, yes, and the improv idea.
Yeah.
We're adding. We're adding. So what's on my heart now more than ever is add to the goodness in the world.
Mm.
If it's not adding to happiness, if it's not adding to self-esteem, if it's not adding to uh, the overall goodness quotient in the world, then what is it? What are you doing? You're
Yeah.
merely eliminating things.
Mm.
The world doesn't need to have elimination of anything. It just needs more good,
Mm.
you know? So I wouldn't even tell people, don't be bad. Don't do this. Don't do that. No, but just only do good, pretty much, you know, that covers it.
Yeah.
So if you think about it as something you're building and not taking away from, every word out of your mouth, every gesture, every call you take, every meeting you do is going to be with the express purpose of injecting positronics into this amazing machine that is the universe.
Yes. Universe. Hersh, thank you so much for the knowledge that you shared and your time and being here. I know you have your own podcast, which is Truth Tastes Funny, right?
Yeah.
And then how else can our people get in touch with you or get connected with you?
Yeah. So Truth Tastes Funny. There's also the Yes Brand podcast, which is about kind of adventures in brand building. But they can find everything at yesbrandbuilders.com. That's the name of my firm. And everything's there. The podcast, the book, if they want to pre-order the book, everything's on there. Some comedy clips for fun.
Okay. I like it. So there's a lot of ways to get in touch with you. Listen to his podcast, one or the other or both. And the question that I have of the week for you watching and listening, if you're struggling with burnout or trying to reinvent your business, what's one actionable step that you can take today to begin your journey? Leave those comments down below. And as we always say, let's make thriving our new normal. And we'll see you next week. Again, thank you, Hersh. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Michael.
Before you go, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of the ThriveWell journey. Every time you show up here, you're choosing growth, clarity, and the deeper work of becoming who you're meant to be in this world. And if you're ready to reconnect with what truly lights you up, I created something powerful that can help you. It's called the Empowered Path, 7 days to reclaim your purpose and passion. It's a beautifully designed, guided workbook that walks you through a week of powerful prompts, clarity building tools, and real mindset shifts. Now, you can get instant access to it today. It's a small investment for a huge return. Your energy, your clarity, your alignment. And if you want to take it deeper, check this out. I'm offering a limited number of free 30-minute purpose coaching sessions. No pressure, no pitch, just space for you to reconnect with your direction, your gifts, and what's next. So you can grab the guide and book your session at the link in the show notes. Let's not just go through the motions. Let's really walk this path on purpose. I appreciate you. And like we always say, let's make thriving our new normal. And I'll talk to you soon.